Well, hey now, welcome to Fitz's Electric Bar. Your host Fitz here, and I haven't posted something for a while. I've got a few on the back burners that I'm working towards. I this time wanted to respond to a contest because the topic is so perfect and right up my alley. So this is from Low Noise with Jason Skills, a Toronto guy, as I am originally. He's got a lot of diverse tastes, and you can check him out. I'll put the link in the description below. But this is favorite concerts of a lifetime. So is specifically how he calls it. And for those of you who've watched my channel for a while, reporting on or talking about concerts that I've gone to that were very memorable is one of my favorite things. I call it Show Me Your Tickets. And I have kept many of my ticket stubs back in the days when you got ticket stubs or tickets that you could actually hand to somebody and not scan on your phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to blow through this fairly quickly because given that these are my favorite shows of all time, I've either done a little description or a more detailed description of it, or I will be doing a more detailed description, and this could be almost like a trailer of what might be coming at some point in time. I also want to sort of talk about honorable mention shows that were quite memorable. Also bucket list artists that I got to see, that I feel very fortunate. There's a bucket list that I never saw and never could see. You'll understand why probably. And also a bucket list of who I still might be able to see, but have not yet seen. So a little complicated there. But let's start off. We'll do the concerts of a lifetime. Jason has said anywhere between 5 and 15. So I'm going to do right up to the 15, plus some honorable mentions at the end. I always take liberties with these kinds of things. So take me to this principal's office. I'm a bad boy. I've divided this into two groups. So sort of the bottom 8 of my top 15 and then my top 7. I always like to preface this by saying, like, what makes for a good show? Well, to me, the element of surprise, if the show is something you didn't expect or the performance is so much better than you expected, then that's amazing. Another reason a show might be very memorable is the expectations were very high and they delivered on those expectations. And sometimes it's just the magic of the night. You know, you're with friends, you might be in a different city, the band is really on, the crowd is fantastic, and it's very memorable. Strangely, I don't have a great memory for a lot of things, but I do remember a lot of shows and parts of shows. Somehow that stuck in my head. So here we go. The bottom 8. So in no particular order in the bottom 8, one of them was the Neville Brothers. We saw them, so group of us went down. We used to go down for the Montreal Jazz Festival. I've kind of got my cheat sheet here so I can remember the dates, but it was June of 1985, Montreal Jazz Festival, end of June, beginning of July in Canada Day. They played at a wonderful place called the Spectrum. They were just so amazing. The funk rhythm kind of New Orleans sound. I had no idea how good it was, but also it was the Jazz Festival in Montreal. So everybody in the Spectrum was dancing. It was like crazy hot. Everybody's clothes were just stuck to their bodies and sweating profusely. So the Neville Brothers, June 85 at the Spectrum in Montreal. Another one in that bottom 8 of my all-time favorites, Courtney Barnett. The first time she came through Vancouver and she played the Commodore, she's, I think, played at least twice. A 3-piece, and I was so stunned by the power of the band. It kind of, what came to my mind a lot was Nirvana, and how incredible a 3-piece can sound. And I didn't have any idea, based on the music that I've been listening to of hers, which I found kind of quirky and lovely, and whatever. It was sort of like, I really like Courtney Barnett. I had no idea how powerful of a rock and roller she and her band could be. That was a great show. The third one in my bottom tier, U2 Unforgettable Fire. So I had seen U2 on the Boy Tour in 1981. So, in terms of boasting, being able to see them in a club, well, actually a small venue called the Maple Leaf Ballroom in Toronto. Didn't have many shows there, I don't think. I believe the Diodes opened up for them, covered Red Rubber Ball, and then U2 played. And it was very good, and I enjoyed it. But Unforgettable Fire, Maple Leaf Gardens, it was a band that had really hit at least one peak in their career, and it was such a hot ticket. Everyone was so excited to see them. The crowd was really into it. I remember as we all left Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. At the end of the show, we were all singing the last song of the concert, which is 40. How long must we sing this song? Just walking down College and Carleton Street, blocking all the traffic, and it was really quite glorious. That one was March of 1985. The Courtney Barnett one was April of 2016. Another one that I was so memorable was Kiss at the Ottawa Civic Centre. I was living in Ottawa then, going to school downtown at Lisgar. And it was, if not the first, maybe the second kind of like real sort of production where it wasn't just a rock and roll band, but obviously we all know what Kiss puts on. I remember being in the stands and the stands kind of going up and down, and it was a hockey arena. It's like the hockey arena stands aren't supposed to be going up and down. It felt like you were in an earthquake, and it was so exciting. And you know, the pyrotechnics again, probably the first time I ever saw fireballs and Gene Simmons' blood and everything. And for a high school kid, it was very, very memorable. Destroyer Tour, that was April of 76. Another one, I've only got a couple of these that are related to more than one band in one night, but I generally left festivals out of this, but the Heatwave Music Festival that was held August 23rd, 1980, outside Toronto, and at a basically a speedway. You'd think after Altamont that they would stop doing that, but anyways, and the concert was to have had the Clash, who didn't come. Apparently they were working on Sandinista and they canceled, but it had the Pretenders, the original Pretenders with James Honeyman Scott and Pete Farndon, and the Rumor without Graham Parker, Teenage Head, and then it was like the B-52s, who were amazing. Well, the Pretenders were incredible. Talking Heads, who came on just as the sun was going down and the lights came up, and it was the first time we saw their complete funk lineup, well before Stop Making Sense, and Elvis Costello, and the Attractions. I think that was it. Anyways, very, very memorable. The whole thing was memorable. Many individual shows within that festival were really great. And continuing with the last few of my sort of bottom tier of my top 15, now the visual display part. So Radiohead in Rainbows tour, I've already talked about that on another episode, as it were, but just a spectacular show, raining out at UBC Thunderbird Stadium. Incredible tour. Sound was great, and yeah, very memorable. So that was great. That was the In Rainbows tour was August of 2008. Another one was Echo and the Bunnymen playing at The Edge, which was a small club in Toronto, at Church and Gerrard, for those of you who want a little nostalgic memory. And that was March of 1981. Can still remember to this day just the dramatic presentation of Crocodiles and Ian McCulloch coming up to the microphone and saying, "Is this the blues I'm singing? This is the blues I'm singing." And the wall of sound and Will Sargent's guitar playing, just dramatic, powerful, just had us in the palm of their hands. Lastly, in that last group, saw the Grateful Dead with Jerry Garcia many times, but the show that really left an impression on me was one of their Cops Coliseum concerts, and very rare that they played in Canada, which was March of 1990. Yeah, I won't go into a lot of details because those of you who are not in the Grateful Dead won't appreciate it, but it was very good, and Jerry was great. But in particular, the audience, just those surges of cheers during certain songs and everything, left a deep, deep impression on me. That was really fantastic. So that's it for the bottom 8. Now we're going to move into the top 7, and these are in no particular order. But the Rolling Stones Steel Wheels tour, saw them a couple nights in a row. This was the live album that came out of that, Flashpoint. Yeah, I was just like, my expectations actually weren't all that high, and they were so good. And to be able to hear them play their classics and to be so on. I'd seen them once before, many years previously, and they were a sloppy mess. I think it was during their their drug-addled days, and they weren't really rehearsing. And so to see them on this tour where they were clearly prepared, they really knew their music well, they had rehearsed, and they were so on. That was really, really good. So the Rolling Stones Steel Wheels tour, that would have been December 89 at Sky Dome in Toronto. Other one, which was awesome, and this was the thrill of the surprise, and that was seeing Bruce Springsteen on this particular tour, the Born to Run tour. You know, famously, he was on the cover of both Time Magazine and Newsweek the same week, I believe. I was listening to this record and absolutely loving it, and got to see him in a place called the National Arts Centre in Ottawa, which is really not a very big venue. And it was right before Christmas, and Clarence dressed up as Santa Claus, and they played Santa Claus Coming to Town. And, you know, I think it was Dave Marsh that said, "I've seen the future of rock and roll, and it's Bruce Springsteen." I mean, that really spoke to me as far as how I felt about that show. It was just incredible. Another one, again, a little bit of a cheater, was One Night in New York City in October 31st, 1981. And I went down with some friends. I'm going to definitely talk about this one in more detail, so I'll just cover it lightly. But we got to see on Halloween night Frank Zappa at the Palladium. He used to do a kind of an annual Halloween show in New York at the Palladium. So we saw the early show on Halloween night of Frank Zappa. And then the late show, which I think might have started at 1 or 2 in the morning or something, was Susie and the Banshees at the Ritz. So two shows. The night actually had many other aspects to it, which I'll save for a later date, but those two was a memorable night of music. Another one that was very memorable was out at the Kingswood Music Theatre, and those of you in Toronto would know that venue. Saw a lot of good shows there. My first Grateful Dead show there, actually, I think in 86 or something, but was Talking Heads, and it was the tour that ultimately became the Stop Making Sense tour. So we're all, I think, aware of what's going on now with the re-release of the movie, and I just went and saw it again, and boy, it really holds up well. But always a big Talking Heads fan, and this tour, again, the element of surprise in terms of just how the kind of the narrative of the way that they structured the show, you know, you would get that from seeing the movie, the way they keep bringing out more and more people, how it gets more sophisticated, more funked up, and just the energy of the show that they put on. It was just a jaw dropper. So that Talking Heads Stopped Making Sense. So that was back in August of 1983, I believe. Another one that was a real element of surprise was to go see Neil Young. So when I went to see Neil Young, this was the first time I saw him, October 78. He just released Comes a Time, kind of a folky country record, and went to Maple Leaf Gardens to see him play. A group of us, went down from, I was going to university in Kingston, and lo and behold, he comes out and he does a whole acoustic set. And it's a fantastic set, and you kind of think, if that's all I get, that's going to be amazing. And it covered much of his career. Opened with, I believe, Sugar Mountain, I think, or I Am a Child. Yeah, I think it's Sugar Mountain, I Am a Child. And then there's a break, and then for those of you that are Neil Young fans know exactly what happened. He came out with an electric set, closed with Out of the Blue and Into the Black, and then later in the second set, all electric with Crazy Horse, Out of the Black and Into the Blue. I'm not sure if I've got the order of those right, but the titles. But another jaw-dropping show. Being able to hear all of the music and the kind of the intimacy that was the acoustic part of the show in the first half, and then just like a whole second show, electric with Crazy Horse, and the power that was that. So this is actually came out after that tour, or at least after the time I saw him. And of course, later, the recorded version, and there's also a film version of Live Rust as well, came out of that same tour. So Neil Young and Crazy Horse, that was October 78. And then my top two, these ones are just absolutely burned in my brain, and were, I'd have to say, my top two experiences. I kind of call them like defining moments. First, the next one, second to the top, would be The Clash. Got to see The Clash with the Undertones and the B-Girls at the O'Keefe Center. It was just before London Calling came out. It was the fall of 79. And we were in the front few rows, and during White Riot, we rushed the stage. I've told the story before. My friends just roll their eyes because they've heard it a million times. But, I was on stage. Strummer ran by. My brother tells me, because he was up on stage with me as well, that people were picking the buttons off of his, off of his shirt. I just remember thinking, now where do I go? I'm on stage with the band. The band rushed off. Show was over. And, that's how they often ended shows. They would work the crowd into a complete frenzy during White Riot, and the show was over. Whether they'd ever get to finish the song or not, that was up to the audience. So, and famously, the O'Keefe Center said that they would never have another rock concert in their venue. It changed names. I don't know what it is now, this Hummingbird Center, the Sony Center or something, but they still do some rock and roll music. But also members of the Clash were interviewed for Much Music, our version of MTV, and Strummer, one of the Clash band members, pointed to the broken chairs at the venue and said, these are rock and roll fans. Nice little incendiary thing to say. Needless to say, I wouldn't be invited back to that venue. Well, they became too big for that venue. And number one is Iggy Pop, with David Bowie on keyboards. And my friend Dave told me, you got to go see this guy, Iggy Pop. And I'm like, Iggy who? Is that his real name, Iggy Pop? I was definitely listening to 70s rock and roll, everything from Al Stewart, Year of the Cat, to, Trick of the Tail or Wind and Wuthering by Genesis and stuff like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But I went to the show because David Bowie was rumored to be playing keyboards. And I certainly was familiar with David Bowie's material. So we got pretty close. I actually had a little tape recorder and I was recording the show and didn't get caught, which was amazing. And it was just one of the most defining moments of kind of my music listening career, because he was just scary, exciting, scary. Like he would, yell at the audience, you're all a bunch of fucking idiots, and now I want to be your dog, the whole upside down. And I remember leaving that show and just going, I don't know what the hell just happened. And over the course of a period of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, I processed it all and I decided that this music was what I wanted to listen to. And I put all my 70s records away for many, many years, all my album-oriented rock stuff away. And that just left such an impression on me, made me a lifetime fan of Iggy Pop. And a really memorable show. So those are my 15. So Jason, consider me entered. I'll just run through some real quick honorable mentions. There are many honorable mentions, but I saw what was to be one of, I guess, the Dead Boys' final shows at the Ritz in New York. And it was also at a screening of the DOA punk movie. And just being in New York made it obviously a special night. I used to go see Teenage Head play at Larry's Hideaway. And I seem to recall they might have been playing for a week residency, but I can remember I was pogoing so much that I'd go home every night with my ankles swollen from going over on my ankles pogoing and my neck hurting from just jumping up and down and shaking my head around, which was great. Another classic honorable mention was Jesus and Mary Chain. I was living in Tokyo at the time and they played a club called Club Cheetah. Another aspect where the surprise added to the whole experience. My experience of Japanese audiences had always been very tame, very respectful, and this crowd was nuts. They were so into Jesus and Mary Chain and just clamoring over the security fences and stuff. It was really nuts, and that was great. Got to see The Who with Keith Moon and Pete Townsend smashes guitar. So that was a very memorable moment for sure. And just seeing The Who at that point in their career, I think it was 76, 75, 76. I can't quite remember. But that was great. Really enjoyed that. So these would be people that would be on my bucket list, and I got to see them. Tom Waits, got to see him once. Really good show. Miles Davis. I didn't love the show, but it was also probably I wasn't yet really into Miles Davis. But it was late career Miles Davis. I think it was either 89 or early 1990. He died in 91. So, but he was still blew the horn, blew the trumpet really, really well. The Replacements, it was mostly a terrible show. I think it was Pleased to Meet Me tour. I'm not sure. It could have been Tim. There were moments of brilliance, but the majority of it was really a mess. And yeah, I mean, but we all know that that's part of the Replacement's charm, right? And then I got to see television, late career television in Tokyo. That was awesome as well. And have had the opportunity to see the Stranglers, Buzzcocks, and I saw the Ramones many times, so that was all good. Bands or artists that in particular I would have loved to have seen that will no longer be possible. Joy Division. I had tickets to see Joy Division, and I think it was the second date on their North American tour. I believe it was the spring of 1981, if I remember correctly. And yeah, Ian Curtis committed suicide. So, and then the other one was Chet Baker. I was getting into Chet Baker, but he had just passed away, I think, when I started getting into Chet Baker. So I never got to see him. And I've often mentioned that late career Chet Baker to me is really, really good. And I think it holds up as well, or in some regards better for me than early Chet Baker. So would have loved to have had that opportunity. And lastly, bucket list that I still could see. I mean, I would put in this bucket list the Sex Pistols, but you know, there's really no interest in seeing the Sex Pistols. I mean, it seems like that ship has sailed, right? I did get to see Public Image Limited at least once or twice and really enjoyed that. But yeah, would have loved to see the Sex Pistols in their heyday. The other one is Kate Bush. You know, she plays so rarely. I think she only did one North American tour way, way, way back when. She did the famous tour that came live album Before the Dawn. I've been going through such a Kate Bush renaissance. I've always loved her music, but also her late career stuff. Her voice changed a little bit. I think things became a little bit more sophisticated. And I just love her music, and the opportunity to see her live would be great. I don't know if she did another run of shows in England, I might just buy a ticket and find my way over there somehow. So that's it. Concerts of a Lifetime contest from Low Noise with Jason Skills. Again, I'll put a link to his channel on the bottom here in the description. And Carpe Diem, motherfuckers. Concerts of a Lifetime. That's Carpe Diem, I'll tell you that.